Taking a look at today's equity index futures markets, let's look at the S&P 500 futures as they're giving back a little bit of ground today after all-time closing highs in the previous session. S&P 500 futures finding a little bit of selling pressure here as we move through the session, although early in the session we did see them trade up to the highest levels on record at 53.33.5 per that June future, before giving up that 53 handle and currently priced right around the 52.95 level here as we move towards the close, which is down about 0.25% on the day. Again, though, coming off the intraday lows. So, again, just giving up a little bit of ground today after reaching all-time highs in the previous session. And looking at some of the driving factors, I think it's a couple things that are influencing the markets. Number one, PCE data last Friday, which was a holiday. Had 3 days for the market to digest that, came in basically in line or a little bit lower than expectations, and the markets were responding positively to that data point early in the session. But then as we moved through the session, early in the morning, really, the market started giving up some ground soon after the open in response to some of the trends that the market was realizing today, particularly the US dollar going up towards the top end of the range over the last 2 months, and rates really shifting higher throughout the session. Again, I think in response to some of the Fed dialogue in the last day or so regarding the potential for rate cuts, even with the positive trends in inflation, putting a little bit of a governor maybe on the expectations, even though the market's still pricing in a high probability of a June cut. I think the Fed pushed back on that a little bit today, and so that's, I think, a factor contributing to why we're seeing the yields moving higher, and that generated, I think, some headwinds for the equity markets as to why we did see some selling pressure, particularly in some of the areas, sectors of the market that have held on pretty well here the last few weeks, but now today giving up some ground. And what I mean by that, industrials, consumer staples, things of that nature. We did see the Dow futures underperform today, down over 0.5% on the day, and the Russell futures realizing some pretty heavy selling pressure as well. So when you look at the general trends today, S&P 500 futures just down slightly on the day, giving up those all-time gains, all-time highs for a day here, but we'll see how tomorrow unfolds. Couple that with the nasdaq holding on to gains today, and the Dow under some pressure, and the Russell under some significant pressure. Again, I think primarily due to the shifting dynamics in the interest rate environment for the small caps, and just some of the rotation and some of the general trends in the market backing off today when you look at the Dow. But S&P hanging in there today, coming off the intraday lows, still down on the session, but just slightly and just off of those all-time highs.